Hello, I am Quinny. Welcome to the channel. In this video today, guys, we are going to be looking into the future. All I'm hearing everyone talking about is getting ready for the World Cup and what strategy we're going to do for the World Cup and what leagues to optimize and what might Sorare do and all that good stuff. But for me, it's a bit late in the day for that, we were doing World Cup content on the channel way back in like March and stuff like that. So for me now, it's the next set of events that are about to come out. Now that we've had a good kind of taste and a good kind of flavour of the season, how some of these transfers have worked out, who are the surprise teams, who are the letdowns, we now have a great opportunity to look at the run-up between now and the World Cup, how long the actual World Cup lasts and the actual implications that it actually has in the Sorare game week calendar, I feel like, as well as then moving into the aftermath and the resumption of normal service, I feel like. Through this, I'll be talking about what exactly we see as value throughout all the kind of seas of change that are going to be moving on throughout the next kind of 3 to 4 months, to then what strategy we can formulate around that, and then the execution. How do we actually implement that, and how do we actually make strategy that can be implemented and can be actioned at any point in the video today? If you laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff, guys. Stay out of trouble, and let's get stuck into it. Now, the last game week before the World Cup is game week 322. Basically, all of European and world football has been built around finishing up around that weekend there, which is the weekend of the 14th of November, something like that, depending on what day we're talking about, if it's a Sunday or whatever. But then the World Cup is going to actually start on game week 324, which is the following weekend. The opening ceremony, I think, is the Sunday or the Monday thereafter, but it falls into the following weekend game week. The World Cup itself, the final will be on the 18th of December, which runs all the way up to game week 332. So to recap, the World Cup starts in game week 324 and is going to end in game week 332. That's 8 game weeks, during which time basically the only domestic competition that we'll be running is La Liga Smartbank, which is La Liga 2 of the Segunda division, whatever you want to think of it as. And the prices for those cards have been going through the roof at the moment. A lot of people see the value in those La Liga 2 cards, particularly for ETH bashing, as well as opportunity season. If you can go that extra level into the fixtures and marry up when Ibiza are playing at home and are Senegal in that game week as well, and if you got the striker and the goalkeeper and you can make a team around that sort of angle, as well as I say, ETH bashing. But in the run up to that, from game week 310 to game week 322, that's a solid 12 game weeks, and it's going to be relentless. Every European team has been going at top speed, top gear in the run up to this break, which is effectively a really long winter break that's enforced on the world of football. The actual aftermath of it, I feel like we get the World Cup final on the 18th of December, game week 332, but then in game week 334, the 23rd of December, the Friday, Belgian football is back. The Turkish football play on Christmas Day, the 25th of December. That's game week 334. And from then, all the way through to game week 337. From game week 334 all the way through to game week 337, we see all of Champion Europe basically come back in except for Germany. Starting off with the UK football, that all kind of comes back in around Christmas and Boxing Day. So that's England, the English Premiership, the Championship, Scotland. Then from Boxing Day, we start to get like Portugal come back, and then France and Spain just run right into before the new year. Spain's on the new year, and then we get Italy as soon as we come into 2023, as well as the Eredivisie. That takes us all the way up to game week 338. Okay, so from the World Cup, actually, like for football stopping for the World Cup in game week 322, and then it being basically back up and running fully for the most part at game week 338, that is only a period of 14 game weeks where all of the disruption is going to be contained. And for the amount of moving parts that there is going around there, the strategy that we should be forming for this point in time, for that kind of Christmas aftermath, I feel like, from the World Cup, should be centered around the opportunities, number one, that your own gallery can make advantage of. Like, I'm thinking if I'm a smaller gallery, the sort of strategy I'd be looking at for that period in particular is a kind of like a Frogger kind of strategy. It's the only thing I can think of, I'm sorry, but like, if you see basically you're a midfielder and a defender short, and you can actually run all the way through this period with a team all of a sudden because you didn't realise that, yeah, your Turkish goalkeeper was playing, but actually, I didn't realise that the Belgians came back really early as well, or you didn't realise that You could go out perhaps and go and get some Portuguese cards that'll be playing through there, or even France, Spain, these countries as well, because they'll get games throughout that period as well. And again, if these can supplement what you've got already, it just means you go from having zero to something. And I think those strategies are always the best ones to implement. Equally, because of how bereft of distinct talent there is in under 23 in global football this season compared to last, if you can crack the enigma of the perfect set of U23 lineups throughout this period, then you could be stringing your way into some fantastic results in this region that is quite reliant on certain players. And in these dry game weeks where there isn't as much going on post World Cup, then you could really put yourself ahead of the crowd if you're getting guys that weren't really affected by the international break, but they were off and recovering, and they come back to club football, and they take to it after a lovely mid-season break for them. Maybe they're at high octane, they're at full pelt. And for average size galleries, I always think around this type of situation where you can quite clearly see the market is circling around the next 10 game weeks, that we've got left of European football, and then it's casting its eye into the next kind of 10 game weeks with the World Cup. Being that next kind of period ahead is always a great edge to have. And if you've got like a normal average size gallery, and I'd say that's kind of more than like 10 cards, but less than, I don't know, 100 or 200 or whatever, I don't know, depends what scarcity we're talking about, I suppose, then you should definitely be looking for any edge that you can capture in this period. Is there a Liga Smart Bank player that you can find way underpriced that you can use, and then once you've used them and they've done some well for you, maybe you can turn them on for a wee flip as well, something like that. Can you spot the U23 goalkeeper that's going to get the surprise minutes because of some unknown reason to the larger audience that it hasn't been known yet? You can get the guy in, watch him get in, make his debut or break into the team or whatever. These little edges, if you aren't going into the World Cup and you aren't looking at this post World Cup period and thinking about, I will be short and I will be light, and if I'm going to make a World Cup team, I need to get this and I need to get that. If you're not at that space, if none of that motivates you, maybe you've done it already, then it should just be, is there any opportunities out there? Is there something I see that looks way underpriced versus the market, and then where I know the market will move to come, the aftermath of the World Cup, is something that you can easily turn around and it doesn't impact your gallery. It's not a goalkeeper you were using. It's not a midfielder that you've grown accustomed to having for a division, that kind of idea. For me personally, over this next immediate period, with everything that we've discussed in mind, I'm more thinking about watching for any random occurrences where I can plug in the profile of a player that I would need in my gallery anyway, that is maybe today a wee bit inflated, or maybe a wee bit further down the line might be a little bit cheaper. For example, I've got a bit of an issue where my American goalkeepers, over the next 12 game weeks, they've only got like 3 guaranteed, and over the next 12 game weeks, of course, only 6 are weekends. So I'm looking at them potentially the last 3 or 4 game weeks pre-World Cup being a goalkeeper or 2 down, just because the American League, when that finishes up and maybe teams don't get far in playoffs, you've got to think about worst case scenario and this sort of stuff. But that's a precursor to me for when the European football comes back, because the American football isn't going to be back until like February, March. Same with Japan and Korea and these other places, The Russians have got a really big winter period. They're not coming back until March. So Russia is almost going to be in line next season, even more so with the J and the K League and maybe MLS as well, depending on when that returns. So these opportunities, I've seen people take advantage of that big Russian break, watch the prices nosedive come January when people are just itching to get ETH out of the Russian cards and get into something else that's going to be actually playing and active. But the execution of it is completely down to yourself at the end of the day, depending on your own strategy, your own actual gallery, how it's made up or whatever. Through doing this, what I've decided to do is actually cut off U23 goalkeepers, because I was a wee bit late going through this period for outfield firepower, and to go and strengthen that was a move I wasn't going to make at this time of the year. So I just think it's too late, like I said at the beginning of the video. So the alternative to that is this excessive? Do I need this for the short to medium term? No, it's not. And I think the medium term, this is September, as far as Sorare goes, medium term is about 4 months or something. So I don't mind the strategy that we've implemented so far. It means now I can take a step back and watch the market and look for particular opportunities that really fit me, really fit my strategy and my gallery, my club, and can really plug in. As you'll know, if you follow me on Twitter, we got a huge acquisition into the NYCFC MLS Cup Champion Squad jersey mint set. So I've now got, how many is that? 9. I've now got 9 guys that are all jersey mint rares, and we've got one of the big ones. We've got Talis Magno, number 43. We've pulled him in. So at the beginning, when NYC cards came out, Magno was around 2 ETH. Santi Rodriguez, who have not quite got the jersey number 4 yet, was around an ETH and a half, 1.2, something like that. I managed to bring both of these guys in for 1.1 at this point, basically. So I feel like I'm in that situation again with some of these European cards where I do want the edge to come off them. I do want the hype. I do want the early season access premium to be passed. I'm not too worried about that. I want these guys for a bit of a longer stint, a better haul, as it were. And I've always been quite comfortable with my club trying to have some sort of duality approach where, yes, you're looking after the today in terms of getting teams out and having a strong lineup and players you're excited about watching progress or deliver on the pitch for you the weekend. We've also got to have some sort of undercurrent in the gallery that is like, looking ahead or things you can use in the market later on to maybe get those pieces that you actually love in a door, like a jersey mint or your favourite player or upgrade of a super rare or those special items. How are you going to go about achieving them? And sometimes it is looking at the calendar and trying to exploit any advantages that certain teams and players may offer in the SO5 arena before it comes to the common consciousness. What I'd love to know from you in the comment section down below is if you have an ETH and you're going to be running about to try and get some rares, given in mind everything we've been speaking about, what would you be targeting? Would it be goalkeepers? Would it be under 23 mids? Let me know. And equally, if it's limited that you run about with, if you had about half an ETH, given everything we've been speaking about today in the video, what would you get up to? I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and retweet and all that good stuff. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.